It's a puzzle we all think about sometimes, isn't it? You see kids, maybe siblings, same parents, same house,
Hmm.
and they can just turn out so, so different. Personality, choices, everything.
Yeah, completely different paths sometimes.
So it really makes you ask, what's the actual mix? What really shapes us? Is it like the genes we inherit, or is it all about how we're raised, our upbringing?
That question, that fundamental nature versus nurture question, is really right at the core of behavioral genetics.
Okay.
It's a whole field, really,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how much comes from genes, how much from the environment for all the behaviors and traits we see.
All right, so behavioral genetics is what we're digging into today. And specifically, we want to see what it tells us about that parent-child connection.
Exactly.
Trying to understand that interplay between nature and nurture, but, without getting lost in super technical stuff.
Right. Keep it understandable. And behavioral genetics has some, well, pretty smart methods for this.
Mm.
Twin studies, adoption studies, they're really the workhorses.
Ah, okay. Twin and adoption studies.
Yeah, by comparing, say, identical twins who share all their genes
Mm.
with fraternal twins who share about half,
Mm.
or looking at adopted kids compared to their biological and adoptive parents.
You can start to estimate the genetic influence.
Precisely. You can estimate something called heritability.
Heritability. Okay, I've heard that term. So that's basically a number that tells us how much of the differences we see between people in a certain trait are down to differences in their genes.
You got it. And a really key finding, especially when we look at parents and kids, is that for a lot of things, cognitive skills, personality traits,
Hmm.
the heritability is, well, significant.
How significant are we talking?
Often estimated somewhere in the range of, say, 30 to 60%.
Wow, okay. 30 to 60%.
Yeah.
That feels like quite a big chunk.
It is a substantial chunk, yeah.
So does that lean towards thinking maybe genes are the main thing? And maybe how we're actually raised isn't quite as powerful as we thought.
That's a really critical point to unpack. Because yes, 30% to 60% is significant. But you've got to flip it around. That means the rest, the other 40% to 70%, is not genetic.
Oh, okay.
That's down to non-genetic factors.
Right.
And that includes, well, everything from the specific environment, the upbringing, to maybe even just, challenges in measuring these things perfectly.
Okay.
Measurement error?
So it's definitely not saying genes are destiny or anything like that.
Absolutely not.
That non-genetic part, 40 to 70%, that sounds like where we really need to look closely.
Exactly. And, this realization has actually shifted the focus a bit within behavioral genetics itself.
How so?
Researchers are spending more and more time trying to really understand the E in the GXE equation, the environment.
Yeah.
How does it work? What specific environmental factors matter?
Okay, and in this context, parents and children, what kind of environmental factors are they focusing on?
Well, a major one is child rearing. The specifics of it,
Like how parents actually parent.
yes. How parents interact with their kids, the kind of parenting styles they use, discipline methods, warmth, structure, all
Uh,
those day-to-day environmental inputs.
Right, the actual practicalities of raising a child. But it feels like it wouldn't be as simple as genes plus environment, right? Like they must interact somehow.
You've hit on another key area. Absolutely. It's not just additive. We talk about genotype environment interactions.
Genotype environment interactions. Okay.
This is looking at how our genetic predispositions, our genotype, can actually interact with our experiences in the environment. And that interaction shapes development.
So it's not just G plus E, it's more like G times E in a way. Like my genes might change how I react to your parenting style.
That's a great way to put it. Or the environment might affect whether a genetic tendency even shows up.
Can you give an example, maybe?
Sure. Imagine a child has a genetic predisposition towards being, say, quite impulsive.
Okay.
Now, depending on the parenting environment, maybe one is very structured and consistent, another is more chaotic. That underlying genetic tendency might express itself very differently.
I see. So in the structured environment, maybe the impulsivity is managed or channeled?
Exactly. It might be less pronounced or manifest in less problematic ways, whereas in a more chaotic setting, the same genetic tendency might lead to more significant challenges. The genes didn't change, but their effect did, depending on the environment.
That makes a lot of sense. It clarifies things. Because I could see someone hearing about 30, 60% heritability and worrying that it means parenting doesn't really matter much. Like, well, it's all in the genes.
And that's a really important misconception to clear up. Behavioral genetics is not saying parenting is irrelevant. Far from it.
Okay.
It's trying to understand how parenting matters and how it works together with genetic factors. It's about the mechanism, the interplay.
It just sounds incredibly intricate, trying to separate all these threads that are woven together.
It is. It's a very complex picture. We see clear evidence for genes playing a significant role.
Right.
But we also see this equally substantial role for non-genetic factors.
Hmm.
And that just underscores why we absolutely need to keep studying the environment, including child rearing, really rigorously.
So the big challenge then for behavioral genetics in this parent-child space is really nailing down how to measure and understand that back and forth,
Precisely.
that complex dance between our biological inheritance and our lived experience, especially how we're raised.
That's the frontier, really, understanding those interactions. But the main takeaway is clear. Genes matter significantly,
Mm-hmm.
but so does the environment, and parenting is a huge part of that environment. It's definitely not one or the other.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? Knowing that both our genes and our environment play these big roles, how does that, or maybe how should that, change how we think about raising kids?
Yeah, or even how we reflect on our own lives, our own upbringing.
Right, looking back. It adds another layer of complexity, maybe even understanding.
It certainly does. It pushes us away from simplistic answers and encourages us to appreciate that intricate dance between nature and nurture. Definitely something worth pondering further.